Peace, peace. Peace to all human families and civilized people on the planet. That is a famous greeting of a lost 5%. Let me give credit where credit is due. Welcome to Jihad Live TV. Had to change the name, few circumstances, but the content is gonna remain the same. So if you don't mind, go ahead and hit that like, subscribe, and share. Tell a problem solver to tell a problem solver if you like the content that's being shared on this page. So let me get into the spiel. So this weekend, I was at the playground. I took my daughter to the playground. I was just kind of sitting back like all the other parents, just as observing the children. And I would watch how they chased each other around the playground, how they just screamed and laughed with so much just fun and happiness. You know, if one fell, they would help each other up, or, you know, you can always hear a kid or two say, hey, I like your shoes, or they would talk about a cartoon character and things of that nature. And I just thought it was a beautiful interaction with these babies. But in the back of my mind, I had some other things lingering, just trying to clear my head with so many family members, so many friends who are dealing with anxiety, anger, depression, just so many different things, high blood pressure, headaches. And I got to thinking, how did we get to that point? And I think one of the reasons we get to that point in life as non-white people is because from early childhood on into adulthood, we're not being told the truth. We're not being fed answers when we ask questions. According to the code, it's always been asked, when do you tell a child the truth? You tell the child the truth when they ask the question. So as I looked at those babies that played on the playground, and I was at a particular location in Gwinnett County, which we all know Gwinnett County is very diverse. You know, the non-white children, the white children, the Arabs, the Asians, you could think of it, they were all out there. And I got to thinking, two things I know for sure. Every single one of those white children on that playground is two things. By the time they turn 16, they're gonna know the white code. And number two, they're gonna know what they wanna do and be in life. That is a guaranteed fact. But what about the non-white children? Are they gonna know what they wanna do at 16? Are they gonna have a code taught to them? Or are they gonna be indoctrinated with the same religious beliefs and principles and interests that we were indoctrinated with, that we never even had a chance to even think or consider for our own thoughts whether we wanted to do or be that? And so I think a lot of times, a lot of our mental illness and onset dementia starts from the time we are a child on into our adulthood. I'm gonna tell you why. I was watching a documentary on ESPN. This is around the time with the Breonna Taylor incident. And this is when the NBA, the WNBA were playing in a bubble. But they were highlighting a particular athlete in the WNBA. She had her spouse. And so I think this was the night the Jacobs, the Jacob Edwards or whatever that was that happened in Ohio, the shooting, whatever it was, the game got canceled. And so as they were walking back to the locker room, the little boy asked his father, he said, Dad, what's going on? Why are they canceling the game? He replied and told his son and said, well, you too young to know about that. You too young to know what's going on. Right there, this is my personal opinion, he dropped the ball. When a child asks you a question, you tell them the truth. Where am I going with this? From the time we're children, we're not taught a counter code with all of our thought, speech, and actions to deal with things in a total global system of racism, white supremacy. Most parents won't even bring up the idea or the fact that white supremacy, racism is a real reality that their children are gonna have to deal with. A lot of parents recently got upset because they took racial critical theory teaching out of schools. But for what? That's your responsibility to teach your child about the world that they live in. So as our children grow older, for those who can't dribble a basketball, for those who aren't 7 feet tall, for those who can't sing or whatever the case may be, or a talent that could just kind of land them in a nice economic situation, what happens to them? And even those who do make it to these platforms, what do we equip our children with psychologically? I always say, you know, when I see these gender parties, it just makes my skin crawl, right? You proud and you happy to have either a boy or a girl. But the one thing I notice about non-white people, they will reproduce biologically a child and then hand it over to a society to raise psychologically. This is where a lot of our mental illness comes from. The beauty of having knowledge of self and your origin in the world sustains a lot of mental stability. It gives you value. It gives you the truth of yourself. You understand what I'm saying? When our kids go to school, most of our kids are going to learn that Africa was uncivilized. They walked around with bones in their noses and leaf skirts. But most white children are going to learn that Europe had scientists and doctors and astronomers, and it was civilized, and they had kingdoms and garments of gold. Right there, these two children are sitting in the same classroom, but they're learning two different things. So as time goes on, when we don't equip our children with telling them the truth and giving them a counter code, everything else that you tell them is going to fail. And even if they are successful, they're not going to be happy because something is missing. And what that is you're going to run into systemic white supremacy racism every single day of your life. It don't happen in moments. It is 24/7. But most of our children are taught from the time they're a child on into adulthood, they're taught certain ways of dealing with it. They say, go to school, get an education, a college degree, everything will be all right. Nothing is ever all right. They tell you that you need to be obedient to God, say your prayers, be kind to all people. And a lot of people do this and still don't get the results that they're looking for in life. I know so many 60, 70-year-old black men and women right now dealing with depression at 60 and 70 when these supposed to be your glory years where you're supposed to be enjoying life. But then reality begins to hit as you sit back and reflect over your life. There was a lot of things you were cheated of. There were things that happened right in front of you. You had no idea what's going on. And you're going to look up and be like, damn, this is where I'm at. And you feel like you have nothing but days left of your life. You feel like any day now is your time. You feel unachieved. You feel like you haven't accomplished everything. And I ain't talking about bucket lists. I'm talking about just basic great life. A lot of parents play their role in inferiorizing their own children into early onset dementia and mental illness. I think a lot of moms and pops, when our children come home with grades, you're so proud and you're happy they got A's and B's, but what are you really celebrating? Are you celebrating a child which the school is inducing to become a critical thinker, or are you celebrating pure miseducation for the sake of a grade? My baby's on the honor roll. My baby's on the GPA. But your baby don't even know who Malcolm X is. He ain't never heard the Ballad of the Bullet, but he know I have a dream. Your son or your daughter don't even know who Jacques-Jean Dessalines is, one of the greatest war heroes ever, but they know John Wick. They don't know anything about their own superheroes and super characters, but they know the X-Men. They know Marvel comic books. They know all these things that make them feel less than a human being. Or our daughters. What do our daughters know? What worth does a black woman have outside of what she looks like physically? We just watched the Super Bowl last night with one of our favorite R&B singers. Was she full? What was she wearing? Are you teaching your children how to solve problems? And are you teaching your children a counter code? Or are you playing your own role in their early onset dementia and mental illness? Because as they get older, everything that you taught them is going to confuse them. Mama said this, mama said that. Now, a lot of things our parents say is going to pan out to be true. But I'm talking about functioning within a system of white supremacy racism. And if you're saying to yourself, that racism don't affect me, why he always talking about racism, then this conversation ain't for you. You can kindly click to another YouTube channel. But I ain't never gonna change my message, because it hurts my heart to get phone calls and talk to so many good brothers and sisters that are hurting and in pain. And when I ask the question, what's going on? What you dealing with? I just feel lost. I feel empty. I've accomplished everything my parents told me to do. I've accomplished everything I thought I'm supposed to do in life, but something is missing. So when I look at those babies on the playground, I got to thinking to myself, with my own child, what can I teach her to sustain her mental stability as she go older, so I don't play my role in early onset dementia and mental illness in our babies? We're teaching them a warped reality. A lot of y'all moms want to be multicultural. I hear black people all the time. I want my kids to know everything. I know. Do you think the Mexicans are at their household right now teaching their kids about black history? The Bible described Jesus as a man with brass-like skin tone, hair like wool. He was a brother. Had to look like Bob Marley or Obama. And white folks know this, but do you think they're going to hang a picture of a brown Jesus in their house for their kids to look up to and find value in it? Absolutely not. But you will. And then you wonder why your teenage son stutter when he's in the presence of white male authority, by which you teach him to hate his father, but you teach him that you be good around white male authority. That makes you proud as a parent. That makes you proud as a mama. I got a good kid. No, you don't have a good kid. You have a compliant kid who's not going to maximize his genetic potential because you're playing your role in early onset mental illness and dementia. It's time we change the paradigm, how we raise our babies. The whole world is raising, other ethnic communities are raising their kids to be on code. Listen, you don't believe me? Who's white folks' leader? Don't say Donald Trump. That's not white folks' leader. Who's the Asians' leader? Who's the leader for the Germans? Who's the leader for the Russians? They don't have a leader. They have a code. And when you come around, these same people, adults, were once children that were raised to operate with the code and solve problems. What are you operated to do? Be submissive, be compliant, be a consumer, be emotional. These are things that we have to weed out in the culture of how we raise our children. And I sat there and I think I can almost call the future for most of those babies on the playground and how it's going to end up. They could have did it with us even in the 70s. A lot of us wound up the way that they said we would. Why? Because we ain't solving the problem of racism and white supremacy. You solve the problem of race, you solve every other problem. Whether a lot of people that call me want to admit it or deal with it or not, I know that the majority of their problems goes back to systemic handling. Most people don't even realize it in the name of because they got money in the bank or they had a good career, but you're unfulfilled. I think, I forgot, I can't remember, there was a case study done years ago, and I hate to present something to y'all without actually having a doctor's name, but they took the brain of a white man, an 80-year-old white man, and they took the brain of an 80-year-old black man. And the 80-year-old black man had so much stress on his brain that the brain pattern was almost unrecognizable. And if somebody knows that experiment or can think of that doctor, please put it in the comments. And I'm wrong for that because I should never present something I shouldn't have readily available for y'all to know. But the point that I'm making is this starts early in childhood. When your children start to ask you questions, tell them the truth. If your child asks you, hey, what is that over there? Tell them that's a white man, that's a black man, or a non-white man, or a white man, or that's an Asian, or whatever, or Arab, whatever the case may be. Teach your children the truth. If y'all just so happen to be sitting around watching TV and CNN and there's civil unrest, let your children watch it. You're doing more justice than you think. But you do harm when you hide and you keep things from them. As an adult, it is your job to equip your child psychologically with things that will help them, possibly even survival. A lot of parents teach their children certain things about law enforcement, how to deal with law enforcement. But you don't teach a code, you teach fear. You don't teach fear, you teach a code. Don't fuss, don't fight, don't flee. Don't sit there while y'all all watching civil unrest on TV and just let your children sit there. Explain to them what's going on. Teach your children how to love themselves. They nappy hair, they full figures, they dark skin. And teach them that you want to be a problem solver in society, which means that, you know what, there's nothing wrong with mastering computer technology. There's nothing wrong with aviation. There's nothing wrong with learning artificial intelligence. There's nothing wrong with robotics and engineering. But you do these things to solve problems. You don't necessarily go do these things to go work for your counterparts. You can work for yourself. Parents, you are responsible for your child's early onset dementia and mental illness. If you don't teach them the truth, if you don't equip them with knowledge of self and the beauty and the glory and the history when they are babies. This is not the school's responsibility. It's not the church's responsibility. It's not the government's responsibility. It's your responsibility. And when you teach children the reality of the world that they live in, they know what to expect. They know how to counter it, and they won't be as confused. They won't be as thrown. Because you know what? The only reason why people have anger, the only reason why people have anxiety and stress is because they are not good at solving problems. Some people don't even recognize when they have a problem. Yeah, and it was quite mind-blowing to me. to just sit there and bear witness to those children, and these thoughts came to my mind because I know at the end of the day they only gonna be children for so long. But then it comes a time where life gets real. I used to tell my son all the time, you know, when I moved to the Grayson area, you know, he was playing football out there. His teammates stayed right below us. My son could not believe that his teammate's mother was a racist. I told him. I said, his mom is a racist. Oh no, Dad, he cool, such and such and such and such. It had been plenty of time I took that boy home from school, his teammate, who was white. His mom being racist didn't bother me. You know what I'm saying? That young kid had nothing to do with that. I ain't had no issue with his teammate. I picked him up as needed, dropped him off as needed. Not one time did that woman ever reach out to help me or ask me, hey, do you think Quentin need a ride home from school? Not one time. But had I told my son, yeah, you're right, she's not racist, my son would have continued to think that every person that he comes in contact with is not a racist, when really they really are. And he needs to know that they are, so he needs to know how to counter it. He needs to know how to counter it with all his thoughts, speech, and action. But he eventually saw what I was talking about. I didn't lie to him. I didn't withhold the truth from him. I told him that's what a white supremacist, that's what a racist looks like. She's on code. I ain't mad at her. I'm not mad at her. So at the end of the day, whatever your problem is, whatever your situation is, whatever's driving you insane, whatever's driving you crazy, whatever's got you depressed, whatever's got you upset, I can guarantee you it all stems back to systemic handling. All your failures are not necessarily a failure. A lot of things you would just code it out. A lot of things happen by design that you think was your fault, you think was due to a devil, you think was disobedience to God, you think because you wasn't educated enough, you think because you're not light enough or you're too dark. It had nothing to do with any of that. We have to start telling our children the truth. We have to start raising our children with a counter-racist code. We have to put the value in our children, because if you don't, the system is damn sure going to do it. When was the last time you seen a heterosexual masculine black man on TV? In a commercial, in a movie? When was the last time? But you're gonna teach LGBT tolerance? When you sit up here and teach your very child to hate their father because y'all fell out, but then turn around and teach them to submit and tolerate everything else or be submissive to white male authority? Think about that. Because a lot of y'all playing y'all roles, y'all compliant with this system more than you think. But simply the point that I want to make, stop lying to your children and tell them the truth. When they ask you a question, tell them the truth. Teach them a code, not the same stuff that you were taught or indoctrinated with that didn't even work for you. Break that cycle. Break that generational curse of ignorance. It's time that we rise up as an individual, and this ain't got nothing to do with coming together, standing side by side, shoulder to shoulder, screaming no justice, no peace, holding up picket signs. It has nothing to do with that. A code is an open air concept. Each one teach one. If I'm not around my child and my child is acting up, I expect you to discipline him, but I also expect you to tell my son the truth of his behavior. Don't sugarcoat anything around my kid or my child. Parents, non-white parents, stop playing your role in your child's early onset dementia and mental illness. Tell them the truth. Teach them a code. It's not the school's responsibility to teach them the value and the worth of themselves, but it also is your responsibility to counter these things. We're not equipping our children to deal with this world. This world the world is never going to be the way that it's supposed to be as long as racism and white supremacy exists. And that's the core thing that I talk about. I'm telling y'all, I'm not passionate about anything else but that, because no matter what you talk about in any given subject, in any given arena, in any given platform, at any given time, it's going to always come back to race. Well, it's time for me to go to bed. I had to wake up early in the morning. I just wanted to share this little thought with y'all. When I thought about them babies, I also thought about the coming future of most of those. How many of those children are going to be happy by the time they reach 40? How many of those babies, when they reach 60 and 70, and I'm long gone off the earth, we long gone off the earth, how many of them will be in mental health and good condition, enjoying life, enjoying their grandbabies, traveling the world? Or will they still be somewhere working a job talking about, I can't retire for another 5-4 years because I want a certain particular pension, I want so much more money, or it just don't even exist no more? Think about that. Stop lying to your children. Teach them the truth. Equip your children to deal with this world. Equip them. Peace.